that my specialty is saying things that other people don't in a business context, and really being open and honest about a lot of the emotional traits and personality traits that we show up with at work.
And I know we're here first to talk about the new book, but hiding in the bathroom is such a very, I can picture myself in these moments. And I'm curious, did you have a moment when you thought, I'm going to write a book, and where were you? When did it come to you that this had to be the book you write?
Oh no, it was a podcast first, actually. So, sorry. Oh my gosh. I don't know about you, but like at the end of a day of Zooms, I am just like,
yeah, especially
I need yoga. So I am part of a women's entrepreneur community, and we have a very active email list. And, this was way pre-pandemic. So this would have been in probably 2014. I just was reflecting on my travels as an anxious introvert, and the fact that I was always going to conferences and I was always hiding in the bathroom. And I just wrote to my list, do you ever find yourself hiding in the bathroom at professional conferences? And the response, like, to your point, it was just like, oh my God. Like, to this day, I have friends who text me photos of themselves hiding in bathrooms. And a producer for Forbes was on the list, and she's like, hey, we're launching a podcast network. We think this is a great idea for a podcast. So I got to play in the podcast, but I then pitched it as a book because I really, really wanted to write a book for people like me who are super introverted, have quite a bit of social anxiety, but are also really ambitious and entrepreneurial and really want to build really interesting careers. How do we market ourselves in a world that is so focused on extroversion, especially in the context of entrepreneurship? So that was the quest for the anxious achiever.
Yeah,
I'm sorry for hiding in the bathroom.
Hiding in the bathroom. So this all spurred out of a question. Like, what an incredible feedback loop you've been able to create, right? And as someone who shows up because I've put, you push yourself to, and then all of a sudden everyone wants you to be the person that shows up. It's like, that's panic attack. And to me, that also is the anxious achiever. So step one, get out of the bathroom, right? How did anxious achiever come about?
Very similarly, I have been talking about my own battle with anxiety for a long time now. I gave my first keynote about it in I think it was 2012 at Brown University, my alma mater. And I shared my experience being a Brown and, being extremely anxious and extremely depressed. And I got a standing ovation. This was a long time ago. Like, we didn't talk about stuff like that, but I was just really honest. And I think all the people in the audience who had been so mentored and like told, like, the world is your oyster, you can do it. And I was kind of like, well, maybe, but you might have some really challenging times, along the way. I think there was a sense of relief. And so I would always talk about anxiety. And as I was promoting hiding in the bathroom, there's a lot about anxiety in there. And I would talk about it, and people, it was just like, again, that sense of relief, like, maybe you've seen me, maybe I'm not alone. And so I pitched The Anxious Achiever also as a podcast. I love podcasting, to really explore the stories of leaders in business who manage anxiety disorders and other mental health challenges, because these are stories that we don't hear enough. And it's really important in a business setting that we normalize mental health.
I agree. My career started. I was running social media for mental and behavioral health companies before anybody wanted to talk about it. And I remember asking, how do you create community around these topics? And, there'd be like the CMO of Oreo being like, I have no idea. I talk about cookies. My job's
Yeah.
And definitely no one was talking about their own anxieties, right? You were always talking about other people, or communities. When you first approached the topic, was it freeing or anxiety like bringing for someone out there who's saying, I want to get this off my chest too? What would you suggest?
I think it's a really personal choice. And, even today, there's so much stigma around mental health. And you still hear a lot of that othering language, especially from leaders. They talk about other people's challenges, right? Or my cousin or my sister or my daughter or my this or my that. And it's not enough when I was feeling this way. But, that's a really personal decision. And, when I advise people on how to disclose or whether they want to disclose, I ask them, first of all, what's your purpose in doing this, right? It's very different if you're climbing in your career than if you're the boss. If you're climbing in your career, I think it's a much more serious decision whether you're going to disclose a mental illness publicly or, broadly throughout the company. I think disclosing it to your boss or HR is probably necessary, so that you can get the help you need and work in the way that you need to. But it's a personal decision because there is stigma. I really do encourage leaders, though, because again, if you've got the juice, if you've got influence, if people listen to you and you have a humanizing story to tell, it can do a lot of good.
No, I mean, it's you hear that all the time, and I think what's interesting is we're also starting to see it on other people a little bit. And I'm curious if you have any advice, whether you're the employer or you're the colleague, or you just happen to be in the bathroom with that person who's in the corner. How do you approach people in a way that is more open and accepting and is helpful?
I mean, if you see someone struggling, it's just really nice to just be human, right? I mean, I think that so much of workplace mental health feels really scary and big. And, people worry, I can't be my team's therapist. I'm not a therapist. Like, I don't want to turn into everyone's therapist. Like, of course you don't. That's not your job, and work is not a therapy. But we have such a hunger at work for connection, right? And we know this from all the research. And companies could just make work a lot more mentally healthy by embracing some really common equity values, like pay people fairly, treat them well, respect their time, respect their boundaries, allow them to create space between home and work, all that good stuff. And then, I think really encouraging a culture, and I'm not the first person to say this, where it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable, where, leaders don't always have to know all the answers, right? Where giving space for a little bit of like wobbliness doesn't immediately make people think that you're not competent. And, most organizational cultures are really bad at that.
And most of them are, and partly because, make my job easier, right? Your book, The Anxious Achiever, you're the anxious overachiever. How would you define what that looks like?
I don't use the term overachiever because that's a judgment. Like, I'm not here to, no.
I took the from your bio as being the anxious, you being the anxious over. So I apologize. I think that's sorry.
Yes.
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 But the achiever,
yes.
The anxious achiever. Who is that person?
The anxious achiever is not a medical term. So it's definitely a term that I've invented after much research and hundreds of interviews. There's a lot of us out there who are very, very driven, right? We are always pushing ourselves. And whether we're entrepreneurs or we work at a nonprofit or we work in a big company, we're the ones who are revving up at 100%. We stay late, we're present, we're on task. And over time, we create a cycle where we get praised and rewarded for that achieving. And we think, oh gosh, okay, well, the only way that I'm going to be praised and rewarded and worthy is if I keep doing this. So I better keep doing this. Or maybe we think, bad things are going to happen if I slow down. We may operate from really old beliefs, even from our childhood, that I'm going to get punished if I don't give 100%, or I'm lazy and I have to work harder, or I'm going to lose everything I've worked so hard for if I slow down, right? We carry these messages and we keep going and we keep achieving. But it's almost as if we're powered by anxiety. We're motivated by anxiety. And it's complicated. I call it a double-edged sword because on the one hand, this makes us very special people and it helps us achieve a lot. On the other hand, if it's unmanaged, if it's untreated, it can really, really, make us burnt out, exhausted. It can take a toll on our relationships, on our family, on the people we work with, on our joy. And so it's really about understanding the role that anxiety plays in your work life and asking yourself the question, is this serving me? Is this how I want to keep going?
And you went through all of these interviews. You said, did you say hundreds? Did I hear hundreds?
Oh, hundreds. Yeah.
Hundreds. Was there anything that was surprising that you didn't expect, or things that came out of these interviews that were kind of like, oh man, I wish the world knew more about this?
What I want the world to know, and what I'm really obsessed with, because I interview people who have anxiety disorders, I interview people who have bipolar disorder, who have depression, who have ADHD, who are autistic, who have OCD, is that when you have a really different brain, you probably need to work differently. And how you work doesn't look like how other people work. And there are probably some things that you're really, really bad at that other people might not be so bad at. On the other hand, there are probably some things that you are gifted at, that you are amazing at. And the task for all of us is to create a life where we're supported and build infrastructure and treatment and understanding around what are really, really challenging for us, our vulnerable sides and the things we just simply cannot do, and then get to really play to our strengths. And, there's a lot of research literature around this, data on entrepreneurs and mental illness and disorders. But I'm fascinated by the myriad ways that neurodivergent people I've talked to have created work lives. They would blow your mind.
What, and in the book and also in your own life, like what are some things that you've done like to address and to create your perfect work-life balance?
There's no work-life balance. That's a lie.
No, good. Because honestly, thank you for saying that. Because, I feel like that's the buzzword of the last 10 years, or buzzwords. But so what have you done, I guess, to achieve just whatever it is that makes, that's the setup in your work and the setup. What do you avoid certain things? Do you just lay it out on the table like, hey, I don't do this, but I'm really good over here?
Yeah. I mean, I love the term work-life fit. So one of my mentors is Callie Yost, and she's an expert on workplace flexibility and redesign. And she talks about fit. And the cool thing about work-life fit is it's like snowflakes. We all have a different work-life fit. And so that's really important. Whether you're neurodivergent or you have anxiety or not, your work-life fit might be different. I always laugh because I have 3 kids, and when I had my babies, people sort of would assume that I would step back from work or that my mind would be elsewhere. And I was like, no, I love working. I love being a mom, but work is really, really important to me. And my kids are annoying, especially when they were toddlers. Like, I'm happy to be at work. And it felt like very weird and anti-cultural to say that, but that's my work-life fit. And so we all have different ones. I think I, when I was 30 years old, left corporate America because I just couldn't do it. I was just bad at it. Not that I was bad at my job. I'm good at my job. I was a marketer and a political consultant. It's that I couldn't do office politics. I couldn't show up every day. I couldn't sit there for 10 hours and interact with other people and be in meetings and just do all the things that seem so typical for an office job. I couldn't do it. I kept quitting or getting layered over or just getting depressed. And so I built a work life that was entrepreneurship for me, which allowed me to accommodate like very unusual hours, the fact that I really can't sit still very well, the fact that I need a lot of alone time, the fact that I really love my team, but I also don't need to be with people every day. And the fact that my anxiety actually is really difficult and sometimes really gets in my way. And it's been awesome. And my first book, Hiding in the Bathroom, is a lot more about this topic, but I think the thing to think about is, what is the level of interaction, stimulation, stress that I feel like I can handle on a given day? What are the things that I'm really good at that other people aren't? I believe my anxiety has given me a ton of empathy and the ability to scan a room and read a room. And so I'm a great salesperson. I'm really good in a room.
Yeah, the work-life fit, and you mentioned a little bit about in the beginning of this discussion that there's the leader and then there's the person that's climbing the career. It sounds like you also had to make a choice at the corporate level. I made a very similar choice.
You did?
Oh, I did. I was part of an acquisition and ended up at a hospital company, corporate hospital center. When I went from like small team to massive team and fun expectations to, I didn't even know what everything was a number. And I left there the moment I could. Like I ran and what I thought was really interesting is the response I got from people is, "Aren't you scared?" And I was like, "No, I'm scared to death to stay." Like I would rather run into the ocean and try to swim to the other side, I think.
Yeah.
And it's not as powerful of an emotion for as many people. And I think that's why there's the differences in how we work. But being brought in through an acquisition, I was given unusual circumstances and unusual privileges because I was contractually, I couldn't quit. They couldn't fire me. It was this very, I came in sort of upper management, but I also noticed that what you're describing to me was this overlooking of people based on really lame things. Like
Totally.
like Bob isn't in his chair enough. Like, what do you mean Bob isn't in his chair?
Cares.
Like, why do you notice? Like, what are you doing? And so is there a different way? Like, is there tips for people who are in the situation you're in where you're like, I have to, like, I'm being overlooked, I need to leave? Or, is it a different way to think about it? Because I know it can be a lot scarier in those moments.
It's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really scary. And so for me, the question is, do I want to leave or do I want to stay? And if the answer is I want to stay, then you really have two choices. One is you can try to conform, and, sort of a hack to doing this is to really pay attention to and think about the values and the language that the company sees as important. And Carla Harris, she's great. She gives a lot of talks. She was an investment banker. She talks about this a lot. If a big word in your company, is like committed or strategic, what do the executives who get that right do? And how can I show that I'm committed? Like maybe commitment in this company means my butt is in that chair. Okay, is this something that I'm willing to conform to? And if so, how can I take care of myself? And sometimes that means like, how can I like emotionally disconnect from this? The other option is to ask for what you need, is to say, I am valuable to this organization, but I work a little bit differently. And I think the pandemic has opened up this door for so many of us, right? Working from home used to be seen as kind of a weird thing. And now it's like, we all work from home. Mm-hmm. So can I ask for what I need? Do I know what I need? Oh, well, I better know what I need. Do I know how what I need maps to the values that the company assigns so that they don't think I'm slacking off? And if I had to make a compromise, what compromise would I make? And so, I think with introverts, I get this question a lot. Zoom really exhausts me. I'm on Zoom. I'm expected to be on camera all day long. What do I do? And first of all, my question to every company is like, where did you get the idea that everybody had to be on Zoom all day long? It's ridiculous. 2, are there meetings? Again, I can go off camera. Can I build in workarounds? Because I deserve this. This is how I need to work. So I think really, really important is thinking, if I want to stay, can I conform or can I ask for what I need? And if so, what do I need to make this job bearable and play to my strengths?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you must get so many emails from people. I'm like, this is like.
I do.
You do. Yeah. It's on a more personal selfish note, I'm going to ask you also then, what about, I found what I didn't expect is I don't do well in an office. Actually, not true. I don't do well not having a choice. So the moment you tell me I don't have an office is the moment I want one. And like, it's just this very psychological thing I go through. When I first started my company, my employees who did not have to be in the office, they had a choice. Got frustrated that I wasn't in the office. So then I started getting anxiety that like I wasn't living their expectation. And I still think that's a big part of it today. So you're an overachiever, let's say an overachieving entrepreneur, and then you start a business and now you're anxious that you're not doing the right thing for employees. Like, is there a way to navigate that on the other side, I guess is the question.
It's all about expectations. Mismatch of expectations makes us super anxious. Mm. Are my employees upset that I'm not in the office? Do they expect something from me that I'm not giving them? Right? I think part of the reason also why hybrid work is challenging is that we're unclear about expectations because we're not together. And so is my boss really happy? I mean, they sent me that Slack, but like, I don't know, there wasn't a smiley emoji in the Slack. And so I don't really know if they liked my work. Like we're so unclear about expectations. And so what I recommend is basically over communicating and like filling that vacuum, because anxiety loves a vacuum, right? My boss wants to meet with me next Monday morning, first thing. Am I getting laid off? They didn't really say much in the email. They just said, can we have a meeting? Like, you could be getting promoted, but if you're anxious, you feel like you're getting laid off and there's a huge vacuum and that anxiety just whooshes in. And so you could ask, I think as leaders, we can sit and we can open up a dialogue, because it is our job as leaders to make our employees feel cared for, heard, led. While also we're the boss and we get a lot of leeway. I trust me, I struggled with the same thing when I owned my business. I really, like, I'm the kind of boss, I trusted people so much. I'd be like, I would want to disappear for days, just do my own thing. And then I was like, uh-oh, Maura, like, you really should check in for them, not because I was worried. And so, I think that just, again, creating expectations and maybe just saying to them, hey guys, I have this weird thing in my personality where I really value autonomy and flexibility. That's why I started this business. And just when I don't show up, it's not because of you. And let's build in some core hours and you can access me or something like that. Yeah. I know how you feel. I felt the same way.
Yes, because you go into it and you're thinking, look, I made it. And all of the things I was anxious about go away. No, they just changed. They just changed. Oh, it's really great. And I feel like the books that you like, knowing like your bio and then the books and the titles, like, again, it shows this sort of transformation kind of with you that I find very relatable, because it's, you go from hiding in the bathroom to pushing yourself onto the stage to then just being this person that everyone expects a lot of things from. And you're still that same person. So, yeah.
Still, that's the other thing that, like, when I talk to leaders, if you have, first of all, if you have a mental illness that you've had for a while, like, it may never go away. It may come back. You're not cured, and if you have ADHD, you can manage it, but like, you still have ADHD. And so I think also just reaching a level of acceptance and really understanding for ourselves that we can then extend to other people in the form of empathy makes us really good leaders too.
I love that. I love that. We're sort of nearing the end, but I want to give you a chance to lay out the big takeaways. What do you hope the readers will get from your book, The Anxious Achiever?
I hope that, first of all, you understand that, anxiety is normal. Everyone feels anxious. Throughout our lives, we'll feel good anxiety, right? Which is that sort of like appropriate, like, yes, I'm going to go on stage. I feel anxious, but this is good feeling. And we'll feel really uncomfortable, sometimes debilitating anxiety, and all in between. And that anxiety is not something to necessarily even be scared of. It's a human emotion, and it's really worth it to try to understand it. And especially, like, how is it showing up for me at work? We bring so much to work. We bring our past, our present, and our future to work every single day, and everyone else does too. And so we can, when we understand what's making us anxious and also how we're acting out that anxiety, we are doing a favor for ourselves and for our colleagues. Like, we might stop micromanaging. We might stop being so controlling. We might stop being such perfectionists. And we might really figure out how both to tell anxiety to buzz off, and then sometimes even to use it when we need it, because it can also be really motivating. So the book is practical. It has a lot of exercises and a lot of really great stories from leaders. So yeah, I would love if people picked it up.
I might actually just buy, like, for my team.
Please do.
I'm not calling anyone or all of you out, but but please read this book. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your book with us. And you can find the book anywhere books are sold. Yep. Okay, that's great. We'll also be sharing notes from this conversation, as well as links to where you can purchase the book in the show notes. This is Bestseller TV. I'm your host, Cynthia Johnson, and we will be back next week with another wonderful author. Thank you again, Morra.